So radical acceptance is to open your heart, your mind, your body to reality 100% all the way. It's to be fully present to reality as it is. And I can break it down and maybe go through some ways to do this, starting with the body.
Great.
So one way to accept reality with the body is through willing hands. And so this is just the physical position of palms facing upwards, unclenched. This communicates to your brain that your body is working on accepting reality as it is. So the next time you're like, why is this happening? Or it shouldn't be this way, or how could this be? Or this sucks. Just try willing hands and see if that makes you a little more present to acknowledging why things are the way they are.
Well, that's really, I really like that. I was reading recently that if you're a kinetic learner, that using your body to help process emotion is really helpful, whether it's using, your hands to throw a ball out the window to break glass or whatever it is. So you're this idea of opening up your palms and just kind of using your physical body to accept it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And to build on your point, you can also try half smiling. Now, half smiling is not like a forced grin. It's very, very subtle. So if you're feeling willful, meaning you don't want to accept reality as it is, you can actually do a very subtle half smile. It's almost like a smize. It can be so subtle that only you yourself notice it. And that can make you more receptive to reality as it is. I also honestly think of this whole practice as radical acceptance as one that involves turning the mind, meaning it has to be done continually. So often, you could think of acceptance as like facing a fork in the road where one path leads to acceptance and the other path leads to non-acceptance. And to turn the mind is to actively choose to accept reality. Now, maybe we're only accepting reality to then in one moment, to work on changing it in the next moment. It's very hard to change something if you can't first acknowledge that it's there. Or maybe we're accepting reality because we cannot change reality. Earlier, you spoke about what's within our control and what's outside of our control. Sometimes we have to accept or acknowledge what's outside of our control.
Is there a time limit to it? I mean, for some people, can you say that if you practice this, that acceptance can come in hours, days, weeks, months? Is there any way to accelerate the process?
Oh my gosh, I wish I could just snap my fingers and make it happen. It's a hard process and it can come in waves, to your point. So even something like the pandemic, one day I might be willing to fully acknowledge that this pandemic is here and maybe the timeline that I expected my life has been altered and things are different. And then the next day I can want to wake up and just want to throw tantrums or yell at the TV and be like, why is this happening? So it can really vary from day to day, but I think over time, it can be a very powerful way to cope. Now, it's also important to know that there's things that maybe we don't want to ethically accept, but we also have to acknowledge them. And I think this can really come up for people who are members of minority groups, because there's a lot that is so ethically unacceptable in the world. And certainly as a white person and a male person and who occupies many, many privileged identities, I'm very hesitant to sort of suggest that someone who is marginalized should just accept the reality and the injustice of the world.
So I think the overall kind of piece of this is that, or this would be my synthesis of all of this, is that there's no way to avoid difficult things in life. It happens to everybody. Some are in our control and some are out of our control. And whether or not, we still have to go through these different processes of either understanding and accepting our feelings that go with it, and then engaging in change. And they're interchangeable. So sometimes you would use one and sometimes you use other, but it is a practice and it's something that it's not perfection and it isn't something you're going to get to all the time. But if you can get right some of the time, you can move into a new place and space and manage the difficult times better.
You got it. I want you to come work with me now. You got it.